Today is August 31st, and this is part 8 of our study of the ministry of Jesus. Now remember, we've studied about the land where Jesus ministered, and we've studied about the people that Jesus ministered to and those that he was around. We studied about Jesus' baptism and then his temptation in the wilderness. And now he comes back into the land of Judea, where John is. And in John chapter 1, verse 35, we read, "And again the next day after, John stood and two of his disciples. And looking upon Jesus as he walked, he saith," John said, this is what John said about Jesus, "Behold, the Lamb of God." Now that Lamb of God was, Jesus was the real Lamb. He was the one that had been pictured thousands and thousands of times in sacrifices when the lambs were killed and sacrificed. But Jesus, the real Lamb of God. Then in verse 37 it says, "And the two disciples heard him speak, and they followed Jesus." So here we have the first followers. We're looking today at the disciples of Jesus. Remember now, there's a difference between a disciple and an apostle. A disciple was simply a follower, one who followed. Apostles were one of the 12. There were 12 of them that Jesus chose out of the disciples for a special reason, and we'll look at that sometime later. Then in verse 40 it says, "One of the two which heard John speak and followed him," or followed Jesus, "was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother." So Andrew came and talked to Jesus, and then he went and found his brother Peter and brought Peter to Jesus. Well, his name wasn't Peter, his name was Simon. When he came to Jesus, Jesus nicknamed him and called him a rock, Peter. Name Peter means a rock. Now, he wasn't a rock right then, and he wasn't a rock a long time after that, but after Jesus' resurrection, Peter became a rock. So that's his nickname, rock, that Jesus called him. Then Jesus, so we got two. We got Peter and Andrew, their brothers. And then Jesus heads back up into Galilee, and he finds Philip. And then Philip goes and gets Nathanael. Isn't it wonderful how people, when they know Jesus, go and find somebody else and bring them to Jesus? Now, Nathanael has been identified also as Bartholomew, who is identified as one of the apostles. And so these four, Andrew, Peter, Philip, and Nathanael, were all later on to be chosen as apostles. By the way, there are two different kinds of disciples or followers. There were those that Jesus called to follow him, and then there were those who just followed him. Then while they're up in Galilee, Jesus goes by the Sea of Galilee and finds Peter and his brother Andrew. They were fishermen, and he calls them and said, "Come follow me, I'll make you fishers of men." And he goes a little further, and he finds James and John, who were brothers and partners in the fishing business with Andrew and Peter. So these four now have been called to be followers. So we got followers now. We've got Andrew and Peter and Philip, Nathanael, and James and John, who are all followers and will all later become apostles. Then they come back down into Judea again, and in John chapter 3, it says, "After these things came Jesus and his disciples into the land of Judea," back again, "and there he tarried with them and baptized." So Jesus now is baptizing, although we're going to see that it was not Jesus doing the baptism, it was his disciples who were baptizing under his authority. It says, "And John also was baptizing in Aenon near Salem, because there was much water there. And they came and were baptized." So people were coming to Jesus and were being baptized. And Jesus was baptizing more people than John, and they told him, "Jesus is baptizing more than you are. He's got more followers than you." And John said in John 3:30, He said, he must increase, I must decrease. John knew his position. He knew what was going on, and he knew that his ministry would come to an end because he came to prepare the way for Jesus, and he had done that. Then in John chapter 4, verse 1, it says, when therefore the Lord knew how the Pharisees had heard that Jesus made and baptized more disciples than John, though Jesus himself baptized not, but his disciples, he left Judea and departed again into Galilee. So now then, Jesus is baptizing, his disciples are baptizing, he's gaining a following, and now he leaves Judea again and goes back into Galilee, where he begins to preach. Then in the book of Matthew, we read in chapter 4, verse 24, and he, that is Jesus, and his fame went throughout all Syria, and they brought unto him all sick people that were taken with divers diseases and torments, and those which were possessed with devils, and those which were lunatic, and those that had the palsy, and he healed them. Now listen now. And there followed him great multitudes of people from Galilee, and from Decapolis, and from Jerusalem, and from Judea, and from beyond Jordan. So now Jesus now has a great following of disciples, people that follow him. So now Jesus has come now, and he is getting ready to really get into his ministry. He's got a great multitude of people following him. So this is disciples, and we will go on with the ministry in the morning. Hope you have a great day today.